This episode is brought to you by DistroKid.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Aloe or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling, and for shoppers, buying, simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. Nobody does online business better than Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. That's shopify.com/income.
Hey friends, today's guest is my buddy, Joey Cape, lead vocalist for the Santa Barbara, California punk rock band, Lagwagon. Joey and I decided to break down the Lagwagon classic May 16th, taken from their 1998 Fat Records release, Let's Talk About Feelings. Joey described the pain behind the inspiration for the song, and how, at the time, he felt it was just another album track. He was very upfront in acknowledging the huge ripple effect that the video game Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 had on the song, and crediting the game for May 16th being one of the most well-known songs in the Lagwagon arsenal, as well as its lasting impact. I asked him if he ever feels awkward just being the singer and having to stand there holding only a microphone when his band breaks into dueling lead guitar solos for minutes at a time, and we certainly shared a laugh at his answer. And Joey was very humble in stating that while he may be the person who comes up with all the lyrics and chord arrangements on a certain tune, it's not until the rest of the band puts their fingerprints on it that it truly becomes a Lagwagon song. This is a good one, so for all this and much more, I'll see you in the pit.
Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast. Hey, have you heard? Chris DeMakes A Podcast.
I feel that there's so much to talk about with you. I want to get a little bit of backstory, and it's interesting. You know, I always assumed as a kid, before I ever met you, when I was listening to Lagwagon from your very first record, but I always assumed because you were on Fat Records that you were a San Francisco band. But you guys, right. Through my research, I guess you're from Goleta, California, which is just outside of Santa Barbara.
Yeah, the original band was more or less Santa Barbara band. Goleta's a suburb. Goleta. It should be pronounced Goleta. You got it right. Everybody, it's California, so people say like Gutierrez Street, and it's like actually Gutierrez, And I mean, you feel like an asshole if you order an enchilada at a place and you go, "I have an enchilada," a burrito. Like nobody does that. So whatever. California, I'm sure they do the same thing in Florida. But most of the band are from that town, Goleta, and I lived in Santa Barbara, and we all, it's a really small town, Santa Barbara, and the suburbs, so we all knew each other, from other bands, and that's just one of those things where I joined a band that was already happening called Section 8. But yeah, we were from here. Thing is, now there are two guys in Lagwagon that, Dave Ron's been in the band for 20 years or something, and he's a big area. Oh, yeah. He's a Northern California kid, and then Little Joe, who's been playing bass since 2010. He's a Northern California kid. I lived in San Francisco for like 25 years. We kind of did become an SF band.
That makes sense where I had, I guess, a little confusion there. But, from when Duh came out in 92, you guys were just on a tear. From then until 98, when Let's Talk About Feelings came out, and the song we're going to talk about today, May 16, I mean, you guys were just everywhere. You were on the road. That's when I first saw you. I saw you at the Milk Bar in Jacksonville. I think on the Trash tour. Yeah. So I mean, you guys were just on fire. It wasn't until Double Platinum that you had your first lineup change.
Yeah.
And that's when Dave Ron came in. And on this particular record, and on May 16, you had Ken Stringfellow of the Posies, which I never knew that.
Yeah.
I was really surprised to know that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know him then, but we were fans of that band. We listened to a lot of music. I mean, you're more likely to hear Steely Dan and the Lagwagon Van than hear, No or Bad Religion or something, But yeah, so there was a phase where we listened to a lot of Posies, and our bass player at the time, Jesse, knew Ken. And I'd met him maybe a couple times, and it was a real weird thing because we were already in the studio recording Double Platinum, and our guitar player was just, I can't do it. I'm out. He quit, And I played a lot of guitar on that record. Ken only played a little, but Jesse just brought it up. Like, why don't I call Ken? And then we all sort of laughed. Like, he's not going to want to be in a band. Like, he probably does not like what we do. And he called him, and Ken was like, yeah, I'm going to get on and play, and I'll see you guys.
Which is so strange. If you listen to the Posies and Lagwagon, you can't really get two different stylistically from either band. That was really surprising.
Yeah, and it turned out to be really fun. We did like about, I guess, over a year. We did some touring with him and everything, and it was a trip. I mean, he definitely was overqualified and underqualified. Like, you have to have some background in the music that our bands do in sort of the intricacies of, dare I say, metal or something. Like, you have to have chops. He's like way more of a guy that grew up listening to the Stooges, and it was all open chords. There was rarely any palming or any of that sort of stuff. However, this guy could show you, 20 different tunings on his guitar, and like, you try to learn the songs on the Posies records, and it's like, I don't know what he's doing because the tuning is crazy and the chords are insane. And so there's like, these different kinds of musicianship, and he was definitely the cerebral kind over here, and we're more of the, like, we got a little math rock in us, And so it was always kind of a weird fit, but it was a really fun year. And I like what he did on our record. He added a lot of really weird sounds and, kind of fuzzy sounds and stuff, and it makes that record unique.
Well, there was a lot of bands after you, and I'm not going to say they ripped you off. That's not what I'm going at here. But, you guys definitely were, I think, a template for some of the, Strung Out, Propaganda even. And that was the thing that drew me to Lagwagon. I was a metal kid. So you guys had elements of progressive metal. Derek's drumming was insane. And of course, Dave's drumming is just, I mean, just the feel. And you mentioned math rock. It's like that progressive thing. There was something about it. And then you had these just sing-song melodies going over it that if you took away the double time drums and you just heard the vocal melody, it could be almost a Carpenter song, and I mean that with all my heart. It's awesome.
And that's a great compliment because it's definitely the way I see it too. I grew up listening to all this like 70s pop music with my parents, and I guess folk, and the other side was the Beatles and Simon and Garfunkel and all this stuff. But I really liked the Carpenters, and I liked all that, cheesy, sappy 70s stuff. So my melodies were always kind of drawn from that. And it was like a little dirty secret. But the guitar riffs were more from the Black Sabbath world, or the Iron Maiden, or, like that kind of metal. And then we had Derek, who, and a lot of the band, he kind of brought us into more. I also had listened to a lot of progressive music, but Derek was really into all that math rock stuff coming out of like Chicago. And so, he was the guy that was like, let's cut this bar. It'll sound cooler. And, so he brought a lot to the table. But it's interesting because it ends up sounding like a thing, but really it's just a collective, that's how a good band works that way, I think.
Sure, yeah, it's everybody's influence. I would always laugh when I'd get interviewed in the early days, and even now, someone would say, what are your influences? I'm like, how long you got?
Yeah, exactly.
I got 5 guys in this band. I grew up listening to everything from Neil Diamond to Slayer and everything in between.
Plus, you can say, what's fun about that is you can say everything because you can also cite things not to do.
Absolutely. There's a lot of music that I do not want to influence me. Yes.
I do not want to sound like, entered.
So what were those first 5 or 6 years like? Because when I first met you guys, I want to say it was 97 or 98 Warped Tour. I had seen you a bunch prior to that. Like I said, the first time I saw you was in a legendary venue that Less Than Jake played a bunch, the Milk Bar in Jacksonville. You guys were just touring your asses off up and down the East, West Coast, and everywhere in between. It was back to back to back. Double Platinum came out on August 12th, 1997, and just over a year later, Let's Talk About Feelings came out. I mean, you guys were just rapid fire.
Well, I mean, you know, in the beginning, when we became a band, we rehearsed. We had a sort of militant schedule. We were a band that rehearsed 5 to 6 days a week because we were young and we loved what we did so much. It was just all we did, and it was all we thought about. And then if we weren't doing that, we were like skateboarding or whatever. You know, we were kids, and I think when we started playing locally, we would play all the time. And when we finally got an opportunity to actually tour, you know, there was like no question. We bought a van together, we fixed it all up, and we just went on tour, and that became the new couch surf, you know? So the first, I guess, 10 years, probably more like 8 years that the band was a band, we were just always on tour. I didn't even have a place to live. I would stay at friends' houses on their couches when I came home because there was no point.
Right.
I remember the first time we went to Europe, we only played in Germany. And we were lucky enough that NoFX took us as support. And at that point, they were just playing tiny venues, but they were packing them. We did something really smart. We did the run with them, and then we convinced the agent, Dave Pollock, we convinced him to book the exact same thing in reverse. And we would rent a little van and go back to the same towns. And so we played, and like a week or two later, we were like, hey, we're back. I mean, it was like, I wish we could have done that forever, because that really works. It always works to tour with a bigger band and whatever. But as you know, supporting a big band on their tour sometimes can be really an uncomfortable thing. You get a short set and, you know, you go out and it's not really your people. When you get your own people like Less Than Jake has, or Lagwagon, you'd rather play for them because it's like, it's your party. But it worked. It works when you do it as an immediate thing, as a smaller band. It's a really good move if you're lucky enough that people want to come back and see you. But we were playing really well in those days, and you know, we were so charged, and I don't know, it worked for us. And then we skipped something. Like we came back and we had like a normal tour that a band would have that would have taken years to, you know, with a fan base that would take years to accrue. Like it was kind of good. So we didn't, I don't know that we really did that in the States unless you count the Warped Tour, because the Warped Tour does that for you as well.
I just remember, you know, when we did the Punk and Drublic Festival with you guys a couple years ago over in Europe, that's when I was like, okay, now I can really see the legwork, the footwork these guys put in all those years back, because that didn't happen from a couple YouTube videos. That crowd had seen you guys before. It was really cool. Thanks for sharing. I felt it was important to get a little of that backstory and set us up to getting into 1998 and this particular track, May 16, which is just... It's one of those fan favorites. And I do want to say before we jump into the song that, you know, I never knew until, you know, you got into your solo career and even, you know, Bad Astronaut and stuff, I would see you playing, you know, acoustic stuff. And you always assume as a younger person that, oh, he's a singer. He doesn't play guitar. You know, I didn't know how integral you were to writing these songs, as I know how Chris Flippin can play. I know how Chris Rest can play. And it's really fascinating to, of course, get to know you over the years and know that, yeah, he does write these songs. And this particular track, May 16, set it up for us. Was it written specifically for the Let's Talk About Feelings record, or was it something you had prior?
Well, I should be really, you know, the humble part, you know, side of me and the honest side of me has to always qualify that with, you know, I do write my songs, I write the chord progressions, and I arrange the songs, and I do all these things, and I come up with a lot of the riffs. But there are definitely instances like May 16th where Chris Rest, the lead guitar player in the band, and I sat down and worked on that song, and all that sort of flamenco kind of stuff that he added. I mean, he deserves great credit for that. That little
oh yeah,
that I had a break, and he filled it in with this beautiful like flamenco sounding kind of thing, and it was like oh my God, that made the song so much better.
Thanks for saying that, because same thing with me. I'll write these basic chord progressions and have a really good, strong foundation of a melody. But it's the sum of our parts that makes that song great as a song for my band. And it's really cool of you to acknowledge that. Just speaking of the chordal arrangement and the lyrics of this one, that's kind of more what I was talking about. And it was interesting to me to, like I said, if I just saw a guy with a microphone, he doesn't play guitar. That's what you think as a younger person. But it's really cool that you've had a hand in writing a lot of these songs. So again, this one, May 16th, where were you at? Was this something you wrote specifically for the Let's Talk About Feelings record, or something you had in your arsenal for a while?
I just write a lot of songs, and it's just sort of my catharsis or whatever, songwriting. I don't know. I write songs. It's kind of what I do more than anything else. It's almost just by accident that you end up in a band or singing. I ended up being a singer because I played guitar in a band, and the singer was such a jerk when we were making our demo. He's the kind of guy that would show up with no shirt on and like two girls drunk. And we're like spending our hard-earned money from our shitty jobs, and he'd be like 3 hours late for the vocal session. So we ended up kicking him out, and we all tried to sing the songs we were working on. And I just kind of ended up singing a little better than the drummer did, And then next thing I know, I'm in Lagwagon, I don't know. I didn't choose to be a singer. I don't think of myself as a singer, but I do write a lot of songs. And I sometimes think now later in life, I might think more specifically about a concept. And so I've been doing more conceptual work, because it almost makes it easier when you can grab any subject matter in the world to have a sort of concept the band's going for, and then just like think about songs in you make the world a little smaller for inspiration. But back then I just wrote songs. I don't know that I had, and I certainly didn't have the title in mind, because Jesse came up with the title of the record, but I just had songs, and I wrote that song like you write any song. Something happens that inspires you and you write it, and if you're lucky, it turns out to be a good one.
Right. Was this written around the time of the record? Do you remember? Was it written at
yeah.
Okay.
So, whenever, I call it the well. Like, you make a record, you go on tour to support it, and then you're either writing some stuff on tour, or when you're home a little bit, you're writing, and maybe you just suddenly it's time to make another record, and you go, well, I have like 12 songs that I wrote. Should we check them out? And then other guys have stuff too. And then you draw from the well, the collective well. But that was one of the songs that I wrote in that time period between, I guess, was it Double Platinum and that record? And that one is the one that's resonated more than any other song I've ever written. But I think that largely is, Tony Hawk.
Well, I was going to say Tony Hawk helped.
That game. That game is it's like if you could have a song and a soundtrack.
Yeah.
Is it better to be in a movie or to be in like this really rad video game?
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, with a song was featured on, and it has become a fan favorite. Less Than Jake has also been featured on that game, and totally. I get it. It has legs, and
it's hilarious to me, because the world we live in, it's not easy to have like a hit.
Oh yeah.
In fact, in a weird way, your bands like ours don't really have hits. We have fan favorite. We have like song, like our audience has songs that they respond to live, and you learn like, okay, these ones got to be in the set because they always crush live. And there's these other ways that they happen. But that was the first time we ever had, and maybe the only time we've ever had a song where it was just like we'd start the song live, and then the crowd would be, this much bigger crowd that we started to get.
Yeah.
They're just then they're stoked, because like 30% of them, they only know this song.
Yeah.
And I'm like, ew, I don't like this. This is what it's like to be a pop band, like a major label pop band. Like,
yeah, everyone comes back from the bathroom for the hit.
The one song, But luckily it wasn't that bad. But it's also something to be thankful for, because it really kickstarted our band, it helped us a lot.
Certainly. Yeah. Well, the one thing, and everything I read on the internet, you have to take with a grain of salt. But I read something, there was a quote, it said that Joey was influenced a lot by Punk and Drublick when writing this record. And that record came out like 4 years prior to this. And the only reason I mention that, and I'm taking that quote, whether it's true or not, is the song,
I think that's a Fat Mike quote,
it probably is. The song Linoleum reminds me, not in style at all, but it reminds me a lot of this song in that this is a very strange arrangement in May 16th. It is just, to me it is. Yeah, we're going to break it down in a moment. It doesn't follow your, typical, there is a chorus, but it's not the focal point of this song. There's so much going on guitar wise. And it's interesting that there's other Lagwagon songs that I feel are a little bit more digestible than this one. And it's so crazy that this is the fan favorite, because it's one of those tracks that's just arrangement wise is really interesting. And the song's 2 minutes and 57 seconds long. It opens with a 7-second, I call it the dueling guitars. And what I always loved about your mixes was you got a left guitar and a right guitar. It was almost like how the Iron Maiden records were recorded,
Sure.
To where you could really hear what each guitarist was doing. And those, I call them the dueling guitars, are pan left and right. There's some cymbal percussion stuff going on, really tasty stuff that Dave was doing. And at the 8-second mark, the band is in for 2 measures. And at the 28-second mark, there goes the guitar by itself with that cool little riff I think you were talking about that's just so killer. And then we're straight into verse 1. And it's interesting because verse 1 is actually a double verse. It's not just one verse. It kind of goes in 2 parts. So I'm going to break down the first half, and I'll let you kind of talk about the lyrics with us. No more waiting on them as you rise inside new rooms. It's official. You've gone. You can live for no one else. Man, the guilt must be huge. There's no gain in failure. You succeed at being mine.
Without being completely specific, a certain person I knew had some success in their life. And some people, I don't know if it's a borderline personality trait, but some people, when they find success, they make a connection that I don't see, which is to sort of leave everything behind because it's got to all be new. It's like, okay, so it's sort of like a status pool, They're here, then they find some success in life, and to them, they have to redefine themselves, I guess, out of insecurity to be this person that they are now. And by doing so, they sort of have to leave all of their past behind them, including their friends. And this was someone I was really close to, and I feel like he basically just, one day he was just not there anymore.
Okay.
And it hurts.
Yeah.
And so that verse is saying, I see how you see it, but the only failure is you're failing me, like you and everyone else that loved you, your hometown pals.
Looking to elevate your music career? DistroKid is a digital music distribution service that enables musicians to distribute their music to online stores and streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon, Tidal, and many more. DistroKid collects earnings and payments, sending them to you, the artist. With DistroKid, artists unlock a world of possibilities. From easily paying collaborators with splits to securing your music with DistroLock, DistroKid covers all bases. Plus, you can promote your releases with Hyperfollow and create eye-catching visuals with the Spotify Canvas generator, all for free. But that's not all. Introducing the DistroKid app, now available on iOS and Android. Artists can manage their releases, view streaming stats, and withdraw earnings, all from the palm of their hand. And for those looking to perfect their sound, check out Mixia. With its simple interface and customizable mastering options, artists can make their music sound polished and professional within minutes. And don't forget about Instant Share, DistroKid's newest feature. Share large files securely with collaborators, producers, and more, ensuring your music streams at the highest quality. Ready to take your music to the next level? Download the DistroKid app and explore their suite of tools today. Plus, listeners can enjoy 30% off their first year by visiting distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes. That's distrokid.com/VIP/DeMakes.
Hey guitar lovers, what if I told you that this fall you could escape to the Catskills and spend 4 days learning from the greatest Telecaster players on the planet? Introducing Masters of the Telecaster, happening September 29th through October 3rd at the beautiful Full Moon Resort in Big Indian, New York, just 2.5 hours from New York City. You'll get up close and personal with guitar legends like Guthrie Trapp, Larry Campbell, G.E. Smith, Carolyn Wonderland, Cindy Cash Dollar, and many more. These icons have played with everyone from Bob Dylan and Willie Nelson to Norah Jones and Mick Jagger. It's an all-inclusive, once-in-a-lifetime music vacation featuring world-class instruction, gourmet meals, gorgeous accommodations, and jam sessions in the heart of the Catskills. And no, you don't need to own a Telecaster to come. All skill levels are welcome, and scholarships are available through Music Masters Collective. Space is extremely limited, so grab your spot now. mastersoftetelecaster.org/the500. Once again, that's mastersoftetelecaster.org/the500. I'll see you there. I might go.
Get your saddest songs together and get ready for a decidedly not sad time at Sad Song Summer Camp, July 15th through the 18th at Full Moon Resort in the Catskills. Join the Milk Carton Kids, Joe Henry, Paper Wings, and more for an unforgettable musical experience just 2.5 hours from New York City. Whether you're a songwriter or a fan, this all-inclusive retreat offers immersive classes, performances, and the chance to step beyond backstage. Every participant gets hands-on time with the artists to fine-tune their songwriting, plus immersive classes and evening performances in a stunning mountain setting. Spots are extremely limited. Learn more and register now at www.sadsongsummercamp.com/DeMakes.
This episode is brought to you by eBay. We all have that piece. The one that's so you've basically become known for it. And if you don't yet, fashionistas, you'll find it on eBay. That Miu Miu red leather bomber, the Custo Barcelona cowboy top, or that Patagonia fleece in the 2017 colorway. All these finds are all on eBay, along with millions of more main character pieces backed by authenticity guarantee. eBay is the place for pre-loved and vintage fashion. eBay, things people love.
Eczema isn't always obvious, but it's real. And so is the relief from Ebglyss. After an initial dosing phase of 16 weeks, about 4 in 10 people taking Ebglyss achieved itch relief and clear or almost clear skin. And most of those people maintain skin that's still more clear at 1 year with monthly dosing.
Ebglyss, lebrikizumab LBKZ, a 250 milligram per 2 milliliter injection, is a prescription medicine used to treat adults and children 12 years of age and older who weigh at least 88 pounds or 40 kilograms with moderate to severe eczema, also called atopic dermatitis, that is not well controlled with prescription therapies used on the skin or topicals, or who cannot use topical therapies. Ebglyss can be used with or without topical corticosteroids. Don't use if you're allergic to Ebglyss. Allergic reactions can occur that can be severe. Eye problems can occur. Tell your doctor if you have new or worsening eye problems. You should not receive a live vaccine when treated with Ebglyss. Before starting Ebglyss, tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
Searching for real relief? Ask your doctor about Ebglyss and visit ebglyss.lilly.com or call 1-800-LILY-RX or 1-800-545-5979.
Out here, there's no one way of doing things. No unwritten rules. And no shortage of adventure. Because out here, the only requirement is having fun. Bank of America invites kids 6 to 18 to golf with us. For a limited time, sign them up for a free 1-year membership, giving them access to discounted tee times at thousands of courses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/golf with us. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Restrictions apply. See BofA.com/golf with us for complete details. Copyright 2025 Bank of America Corporation.
It's happened a few times in my life, a few people that handle sort of fame in a weird way. I never understood it. I'm not like that at all.
It's almost like they want to be perceived as what the fans perceive them as, or they think they're perceived as, so they can't be themselves anymore.
Some kind of weird rock star Kool-Aid shit, that's like, you grew up, like I grew up seeing the spectacular in bands. I understand that when you're a little kid, these people that you love, these bands you love, they seem like almost like gods or something.
Sure.
But if you're intelligent, you can separate that sort of fandom from reality. You know that these are just people. And as you get older, and especially if you are practicing in the field, you start to realize a lot of these guys don't have any money. Like a lot of these guys are like me. Like people like them, but I'm still going home to no place to live or whatever. Like I got a shitty apartment with like a 20-year-old couch that's got bugs on it. You know, I'm just saying. So there's a lot of like image that goes with it. And it's not too hard to imagine that that's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find kind of interesting is how I would say it's a small percentage, but a small percentage of the people that find success in entertainment, they kind of go the Kanye West route. Like, I have to be the golden god, you know? So their whole persona changes to fit this like thing to keep it going. And I always looked at more like, I'm not that way. I'm way more, I don't want to name, I don't like saying names, but like, I think of it like Hemingway or something. No, I'm just who I am. And I'm just going to keep doing it. And I have a really great work ethic. And if it works out and I'm successful, that's a bonus.
Yeah.
But I'm doing this because of the art. You know, I'm doing this because this is what I can do and what I know and what I love.
Yeah.
And I'm not patting myself on the back. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying it always kind of blows my mind when people that I was very close to go that route.
Interesting. And was the song actually written? And before we go any further, I keep seeing the song on the record, you know, on your Wikipedia page everywhere, written as May 16. I always called it May 16th, and I think you referred to it as that. Is that what? How?
Yeah, that's what it is.
Okay.
That's a typo. Also, I was never there. There are lots of things like, let's talk about feelings being inspired by punk and drublic. I'm happy to let people believe that, but that's not true.
And I didn't think it was true. And the only reason I brought
not even slightly,
no. And of course, how could you not be influenced by a record that was on your label that was a huge record? Not that it was a direct influence, but of course you heard the record. But
yeah, but there's never like a specific thing. And my inspirations are, I mean, I'm older than Mike. If anything, we share inspirations from our childhood, but you're rarely inspired by your peer bands, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe there's something a peer band does that you go, God, that's really cool. But because they're your peers, you know, you might even make a conscious effort not to copy that.
Right.
You know, not to like let that get too infused in your sound. A lot of what happens is at the same time, a whole bunch of bands are doing something and they're inspired by the same things from their past. And one band does really well, and the other bands just do maybe okay or don't do anything.
Yeah. And
so there are like a million bands that probably started or played at the same time as other bands that got really famous, and they will probably always be, you know, just when people write about things that they didn't experience, they're going to say, well, clearly this band was influenced by this band, but
yeah,
there's a lot of parallels is what happens, you know.
Was the track actually written on May 16th?
Yes.
Oh, awesome. Okay, I want to get into the second half of this verse now, and I say second half because it kind of starts over, and you say, yeah, old friend, see you there. I will be proud from afar. I can't paint a picture. And right here,
I can paint a picture.
I can paint a picture, excuse me, in a moment. And then it says, of memories, and there aren't many left. I am extradited.
So they're fading.
It says fading there?
Your memories are fading. I'm not saying that's the lyric.
I was like, sorry. I think I know the lyric, but that's happened before on the show.
The first time I corrected, and I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
But I'm also like commenting on what the lines mean, you know, to the song.
Yeah, no, and I want to get into that for a moment. I was just reading ahead because I wanted to talk to you to see if you consider the line basically when it goes double, the drums go halftime on the line of memories and there aren't many left. I am extradited, uninvited. I'm considering that almost like a pre-chorus.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
The chords are going major, minor,
yeah.
You know, between the same chord. And then it goes to the lift.
Yeah.
And the lift is a tiny pre-chorus. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay. So that's what I considered a pre-chorus, and Joey's agreeing with me here, so we're going to call it a pre-chorus 1. I noticed a couple other things, and then I want you to break down the lyrics here that I just read. Very interesting placement of backing vocals. There's a harmony on moment, there's a harmony on the words many and left, and then there's a harmony on the word uninvited. I know Ryan Green produced the record.
Yeah.
Was that something Ryan came up with, something you came up with? Really interesting placement, and why just those words? I'll
tell you, because I think that happens a lot, and it happened a lot with Ryan. Ryan had a real gift for that kind of thing. What it was I would sing a harmony on the entire verse or something back then, and let's just say that maybe I wasn't quite as, I think I've gotten much, much better at harmonizing, but sometimes even if a harmony works, it just drags down the melody, and the melody's stronger without it. We all learn this as songwriters, and so Ryan would do this thing that I'd never seen before, where he would just pick words. I go, yeah, I like that one. And he'd go, all right, let's keep that. And I'd be like, okay. Oh, I like that one note. Sounds so cool. Yeah, we'll use that. And you're kind of like, okay, unless you really blend that stuff down, this is going to be weird. To me, it's weird if it's like singing, and then it's just all like a harmony for a second, and then sprinkled that way.
To me, it's weird, and analyzing this song after being a songwriter for the past going on 3 decades, 30 years, Joey, I'm going to take a page out of this. I've never thought in these terms. Roger, when he sings them, we sing lines. We never just do one word here or there.
Sure.
I think that I want to borrow this at some point and try to do, because it's really tasteful and it's really cool.
I think Ryan was just not really thinking about it. He was like, okay, well, you like that? And we'll blend it and it'll sound cool. And the funny thing is, once you start paying attention, you start to hear it in old music that you like.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it's just one syllable and you go, wow, that's tricky. But here's the thing. I'm still to this day not drawn to that. I'm drawn to like punches of doubles and punches of harmony. And I think that they if they work really well, they do have a way of lifting the melody out of like the mundane kind of, there's a real art to harmonizing. But yeah, that was a Ryan Green thing. And I was very uncomfortable with it. But the funny thing is, he did that all over that record, I think. And, it's like, I let it go because it kind of works.
No, and for this track in particular, it works brilliantly. And like I said, I've never, thought of picking out one word or there. And I'm inspired to write a song and do some placement like that. I think it's really cool. It's interesting how you set up the first half of the first verse, and getting into the second half here, I want you to touch on these lyrics. From what you said about your friend that kind of, perceived himself as something else, this line really struck me now that I know some of the backstory. It says, yeah, old friend, see you there. I will be proud from afar. Like, I'll watch you from back here, but...
Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's sort of like you're going to have to separate the art from your friend, kind of thing, I guess. But also, I'll be here when you get through this. I'm still going to be here. That's how good of a friend I am.
Yeah.
I'll wait for you to come down from whatever fucking weird mountain you're trying to climb.
Mm-hmm.
And, the memories fading kind of part of that is sort of like, but that's a way of saying, but look, just so you know, there's a clock here and it's ticking. Like, there's only so long I'm going to be loyal and wait.
I have my boundaries too.
Yeah. Like, I can paint a picture from my memories for a while, but at some point those memories are fading and I won't be here.
And that last line now makes so much sense too. I am extradited, uninvited. And on the word uninvited in the pre-chorus, the drums go back to double time there from the halftime. And this is particularly long in a song to get to the chorus. We're at 1 minute and 16 seconds. And the chorus is just one line, 4 words. It's just another Saturday.
Yeah.
Again, we're getting into the range of where it's, to me, I guess this is the chorus, but it's not really what you'd think of as a chorus. That's why I think this arrangement of this song is weird. Was there ever any talk between the band, yourself, Ryan Green, of we need more of a chorus here, or was that always the idea?
I don't think so, but I'm a pretty willful person, and if somebody had thought that, they might not want to say it.
Yeah, I've been in the studio where I'm like, you know what, I don't want to fight with him right now.
No. No,
I'll just let this one go.
Yeah.
We'll get to the next song. I'll pick my battles. I can totally relate to that.
I don't think any of us thought like this is a great song, or that something's going to happen with it. It was just another song, But yeah, it's not too often. In fact, there's only been a couple producers I've worked with that kind of go that route.
Yeah.
And as I'm older, I really appreciate that now. I like it when somebody says to me, this isn't you need more here. Like you need a departure here or something. And then it pushes me back to the drawing board. And a lot of times, even if they're not right, just because you're forced to go back and try to do something different,
yeah, you
end up improving it in some way anyway. I mean, there's nothing wrong with going back to the drawing board. In hindsight, like I really like the way that song works. The descending chords and the sort of breakdown of it is sort of saying, this is the defeat, though. I'm defeated. This is it's just another day.
And it's just another Saturday. I was going to say just now that's where that lyric comes in. It's like, you know what? You're in your own grandiose world of whatever. But to me, it's just another Saturday.
Yeah. Well, it's also me kind of lying to myself saying, well, I'm okay with this. It's just another day. It's a little bit of, I think that's, yeah. But also Saturday was sort of a day that marks something that the part of it I can't talk about.
Fair enough. Okay.
Sorry to your listeners, but something happened on a Saturday that was May 16th. And that was the day I wrote the song. And I wrote the song because something I saw. And then it was just it really upset me.
Yeah.
And I was in a friend's apartment and I just picked up the acoustic and just wrote the song.
Okay.
Because I was just, like sometimes good things come from bad things kind of thing.
Yeah, good things come from pain sometimes. It's, when the first record, when the guy has nothing in the bank, he writes these gut-wrenching songs, and the next record sucks because he's living on the hill in Malibu.
Yeah, it's so funny. And it's really weird. The older I get and the more that you start to understand like your weaknesses and your strengths and the things that happen. This is a good question for you. I mean, do you ever have this thing with Jake where you've got an album written and you're like literally like either going into the studio or you're starting and somebody goes, I got this song and it's just killing me. Like, do you guys want to hear it? Like, and you throw in that like 11th hour tune. And it's like with us and with me in general, it's always like one of the best songs on the record.
This is becoming a recurring theme on the show. Yes, every record we've ever done that happens, it seems like.
Yeah, it's like the simple one that it's right. And then you just bring it in. And luckily, it's usually for me an easy enough song for the band to go, yeah, I mean, we can record that thing. I mean, it doesn't seem like there's much to it. And then you record it and the album comes out and it's like everybody's favorite song on the album. And it's like, I'm just doing this all wrong. I just got to all my songs should be like farts, like involuntary.
Well, my producer Chris was talking about the other day. We were going back and forth and he was saying the exact thing you're talking about where, you know what? There's no pressure. You already got an album in the can. What's it going to hurt? What's it going to hurt to record another one? You let your guard down, and all of a sudden, this song just rises to the top because it wasn't really thought about. It was just weird. Full guttural feeling. And that's really cool. The chorus here at the end, the drums are halftime through, and at the end of the chorus, there's just this killer guitar riff again, and you got it panned left, really moving. And on the right, it's just the chords that are moving with it, and there's this great snare build up, and then you're into the second verse. I want to get into these lyrics. Take a step to freedom, you and her against this cruel world. Take a breath of shelter, then exhale. And then the next part's the pre-chorus, but I'm going to read these two. Trust and allegiance, liberate yourself from hell. And, I don't know if it was written like this in the record, because I listened to this song over and over again thinking, am I going crazy? I always thought the word was against, you and her against this cruel world. But everywhere on the internet, when you go pull up lyrics, and almost every site except one I found this, it says, you and her loathing this cruel world. Was that ever a lyric?
No. And, I have said this, Chris, for
like loathing and against aren't even anywhere near the same sounding syllables.
Dude, can I tell you what I think the explanation is?
Please.
And I mean, no disrespect for people of the world. But what I think is a band like my band has more fans in places where English is a second language than they do where English is the first language.
Interesting.
Again, no disrespect here, but also bands like mine don't have such a great work group behind them. We have we just got a manager like a year ago. We've been a band 30 years.
There's no cross-referencing and checking.
Right. And so no one has ever, I've been saying for 10 years to my band, we got to pay somebody to go to all the lyric sites and correct their goddamn lyrics. Because I'm not going to do it. It's too much work. But there are literally so many of those because they copy from each other.
I'm glad this pisses you off as much as it pisses me off. I'm glad I got someone else in my corner.
Oh, yeah, I hate it. Because sometimes I forget my lyrics and we're bringing an old song out and I don't have the album handy. So I go online and I go to plyrics.com or whatever, and I look it up and I'm reading that and I'm like, well, that can't be right. That's not even proper English.
Yeah. So that's all that's about. And that's interesting. You brought up that your fan base, that this could be written by somebody in Italy or something, but I don't know. It's
exactly.
Against is,
and I cherish them for doing that. It's so sweet that people do that. I mean, how lucky are we?
Yeah.
But they definitely get a lot of the words wrong, and every once in a while, loathing, like they don't even sound. They're not even, against. Like I don't know what happens there, but hey,
yeah.
This is the really funny part. There's a really rare occurrence where the thing they wrote is better.
That happened.
And then I change it. I change it because it gets stuck in my head and I sing it live the other way and I go, it's not my fault. It's fucking Leonardo's fault, man.
Yeah. No, that is that's funny you should say that. I've had that happen when analyzing songs on this show. I'm like, you know what? I think the lyric online is actually better. But in this case, I like Against better. We're going to go with that.
Well, sure.
Something you spoke about with Ryan Green a moment ago about the backing vocals, which now really makes sense, is on this particular verse and even the first two words of the pre-chorus, the last line of the verse, take a breath of shelter, then exhale. And then the first two words of the pre-chorus, trust and, all have harmonies on them.
Take a breath of shelter, then exhale, trust and allegiance.
So it wasn't just one word; it was a whole sentence here, and then two words. So again, you probably sang the whole thing, and Ryan kept what he thought was the sweet spot.
Well, we decided together. I remember this well, and it's so bizarre because there's so many things I don't remember, but these things you're talking about, I remember very clearly.
Cool.
I would like to have been the same way on both verses, but it might just be that the lead vocal, like the sound of that syllable, didn't quite work with the harmony. Sometimes it's not, or maybe there was just something that was a little flat because of something in the guitar, so the harmony's not sitting right. But the second time you do it on the second thing, it's the same fucking notes, but it works perfectly the whole line.
And you can't explain
and
why.
You go, well, I know. And most of us just go, well, we can just pan the harmony over there so it's more group vocally, and even though it doesn't perfectly work, it's like it sounds like a part.
Yeah.
But this was one of those things where somewhere in the middle of those things and the way his technique, that was what we had to do. But the second time the harmony worked, so we used the whole thing.
Yeah. Well,
I can't explain that.
Yeah, something I didn't mention. This second verse here is only half of what the first verse was at the top of the song. So we're getting half here, and getting into the second chorus again. This song, to me, I don't say this in a bad light, but it's a very strange arrangement. We're back into the chorus now, and a chorus is usually where if you're going to hear harmonies in a song anywhere, it's going to be in the chorus. There's no harmonies here. Yeah. It's just another Saturday. But then you say it twice. You say it's just another Saturday, and on Saturday the second time, the melody changes on the word Saturday.
It's just another Saturday. It's just another Saturday.
Like I'm emphasizing it.
Okay, that's what that was about.
And it needs to be alone because it's supposed to be naked. It's sort of like saying, okay, all this stuff, and then just like, okay, it's just another Saturday. Like, just relax.
Well,
You
that's
know?
really interesting.
That's me talking to myself.
That's really interesting.
And-
You talked about that personal connection there, where this is you just talking to yourself. There's no harmony on it. This is just me.
You're ranting about something that you're pissed off about, you know, that's really hurt your feelings, and you're really emotional, and then you take a breath.
That's cool.
You know, that's kind of the way I see that dynamic, and that just can happen naturally or be, you know, intuitive, or it can be calculated. But I think it was just intuitive and natural in a way with that song, because it was written in one sitting.
I want to talk about the rest of the notes I have here, and then we'll wrap up the song. And again, cool. I'm going to use the word strange again, Joey, because here at the 2 minute and 6 second mark, we almost have a minute left of the song. When you hit that last, it's just another Saturday with that melody change on the word Saturday, that's the last vocal we hear in the song. You have another 51 seconds of this song going. It's almost a minute of just music. And I got to thinking when I was listening last night, I said, shit, you know, I've seen Lagwagon perform this song how many times, but I really wish I could go back to Punk and Trouble and watch you. What the hell does Joey do for a minute at the end here, you know? So that's a long time on stage as a singer with no guitar.
Okay, so it depends on the venue. And it's a really funny thing. You are so funny, man. Wow. Yeah, that's so great. Because I have to tell you, you know, it's like, oh shit, I'm not a dancer, you know, like it's like every night the same thing occurs to you. And so you end up developing a routine. That's something you can do, whether it's like, all right, this is the part where I just kind of, you know, whatever, like do a Spicoli dance, you know, or if it was the right venue for a long time when I was in better shape, I would do a stage dive.
Ah, okay.
Because a lot of times it was the last song we played live. So before the encore, or it was the last song of the set. So I'd just dive into the crowd and let the band have their little solo section.
Yeah.
But, you know, then you play a festival, and like, if you want to dive, you're just going to fall 15 feet into dirt between the barricade and the stage. So sometimes, you know, I just like, I don't know, it's just whatever I felt like doing. I mean, sometimes I just grab a drink that's on stage and I just sit there and kind of like drink it with a straw and just look at the crowd like, what are you guys doing? Like, I'm waiting for my band to stop masturbating.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I guess but it is a funny thing when you first, because, you know, we have quite a few sections like that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I have always tried to be generous when I write to those guys for them to have to shine. You know, I think more than a lot of the other bands that they were called punk, we always had a lot of guitar solos. You know?
Well, let me get into that real quick. Okay, so the last 51 seconds here, which again, this is just such a strange way to end a song. The whole song to me is just, it's really wacky in arrangement. And again, Tony Hawk, yes, but barring that, it's just amazing how this song, because it just isn't as digestible as some of your other tracks that you have. It just isn't. Sure. And you get here at the 2 minute and 14 second mark, there's this killer descending guitar part that goes into this completely different drum feel. And this is where it gets proggy, the progressive elements. Dave just goes into this like crazy, just complete different time signature. And at 2 minutes and 33 seconds, the intro riff comes back in. Intro progression comes back in. The drums are now playing a mid-tempo groove with a guitar solo that's happening. So this guitar solo is going on, and then at the last
flamenco
kind of thing. Yeah.
It's all of a sudden we're in like Andalusia.
And the last 5 seconds from the 252 point to the 257 when the song ends, the drums are double time. It's just this last burst of energy, and the song ends abruptly. Just awesome. Right. I can't, and I do think about this when I come across songs that are just kind of out there arrangement wise. And I say to myself, what else could it be? And I can't imagine this song being anything else than what it is. And I mean that with the utmost sincerity. It's what it is. It's what it's supposed to be. It's great.
I can't either. And, look, I know that you know what I'm about to say. A lot of times these things just happen by way of band communication and collaboration, and you end up with some sort of unique thing that you wouldn't have ended up with. I'm fairly certain that the whole outro and the whole intro, including the acoustic thing before it, The Kids Are All Wrong, all was written by me and arranged by me. But what happens is you bring it to the band, you're like, and then I thought it would do these breaks. And I might have heard that like, like it's an outro. We're going home now, like a blues song or something. But somehow when the band gets a hold of it, they're throwing all this stuff. And then the guy's, I'm going to do a solo here. You're like, okay, sure, man.
Do your thing.
Start soloing for no reason right there, But the thing is, when you hear it and everybody's put their stamps on it, it starts to get real weird. But you go, oh, but this is way cooler than my imagination. I had this like pretty basic, like it may have just been my song, not been at all unique in arrangement. It might have been much more simple sounding. So many of those things are just little things that the band does, Maybe they're just in the microscope on a section and not really thinking of the big picture that you as the creator of the song, you have this wider view of it at all times. So I don't know. I think a lot of it is just incidental. It just happens.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And
I would love to take credit for being like, man, it's just my vision was just so complex, like, I don't think so.
Well, in a sense, it was. The basics were there, but then you brought it to the band, and they added what they added to it, and that's a really great point that you made. The last thing I want to touch on is, I don't know how long or when Tony Hawk Pro Skater came out. Do you remember how long the song had before it wound up on that? And I guess my question is, was this a fan favorite out of the gate, or was it really the game that pushed it? Or do you remember playing this and getting a reaction or people talking about the record?
I can't really answer that question because I don't know. It's a good question. It's something to think about, but I don't remember. I know my friend Brian was the guy that connected us to the, what are they called? EPA, EA. I don't know, the company that was putting out the game.
Okay.
And he said, that Tony Hawk's doing this Pro Skater thing and they want to use this song. So kind of seems like they wanted that song. So the album must have been out, but I don't think it had been out long at all. And it certainly wasn't out long enough to know, when you make a new record, this, sometimes you make a new record and you play some of the new songs that you think are the songs that play off that record, and they do okay, but they're the new songs. Even if they're better than anything you did before, it's going to be after the next record that those songs on the record before start to become fan favorites or whatever. Super weird how that works, and like sometimes you even know ahead of time they're going to like this. They just need a few years.
That's
But that one hadn't become. I mean, really, we have to cite and credit the game for, I think, the popularity of the song, because otherwise it just would have been a song on our record, and it may have become a song that we played every night, the way maybe Violins from Haas became. Sure. Razor Burner. There's songs that we play like pretty much every night we play, because if we don't, people get pissed.
You go see Lagwagon and you want to hear May 16th. I mean, it's just
we
what it is.
We have to play it. I don't think there's ever been a show since that song came out that we didn't play it.
Well, you answered my last question, and I just want to thank you so much for hopping on. I know you've been busy lately. Thanks for making the time. And do you have anything you'd like to leave the listeners with? Anything solo Joey Cape? Anything with the band going on, or?
Would I feel a little bit bad if I didn't say? I don't know. I'm making a new record, but
okay.
Whoop-de-doo. Joey Cape's making a record. Weird.
Well, I want to hear it. Am I not somebody? Come on.
No, I just mean it's funny to kind of like promote something or talk about something, especially when it's not going to be out for a long time. But I did make a record in lockdown.
Okay.
I think around March, I realized early on, I said, okay, this thing it's going to have legs.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be, and by the time I move down south with my folks, I'm living in this little tiny room, you know, which is almost like a cabana thing next to their pool or whatever. It's so cool. I just was like, I had gutted the studio up in San Francisco and it was all in storage. And I thought, I'm going to go up there. I'm going to get all the best stuff I have. And I'm going to make this tiny little studio on the corner of the room. And I'm just going to record and
awesome.
write and make songs. And then I got a few months into it and I came up with the title for the record and just started writing only about the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just about finished. I'm going to the studio right after this. I've got maybe, I don't know, another week of tracking to do and it'll be done.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. And I'm really excited about it. It's cool to write. And I played every instrument on it. And I've never done that. I played the drums and the bass, and I even played some like lap steel and like there's things that I'm playing on it that I'm not great at, but you know, I'm doing okay. It's fun.
That's awesome, man. Well, everybody out there, keep your eyes peeled for the new Joey Cape solo record. And I'm looking forward to hearing it. And again, man, thank you for hopping on.
Yeah, no, appreciate it, Chris. It was fun.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Knowing you could be saving money for the things you really want is a great feeling. Talk to a State Farm agent today to learn how you can choose to bundle and save with the Personal Price Plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
The spirit of innovation is deeply ingrained in America, and Google is helping Americans innovate in ways both big and small. The Air Force Research Laboratory is partnering with Google Cloud using AI to accelerate defense research for air, space, and cyberspace forces. This is a new era of American innovation. Find out more at g.co/American innovation.
Hey there, travelers. Kaylee Cuoco here. Sorry to interrupt your music, great artist BT Dubs, but wouldn't you rather be there to hear it live? With Priceline, you can get out of your dreams and into your dream concert. They've got millions of travel deals to get you to that festival, gig, rave, sound bath, or sonic experience you've been dreaming of. Download the Priceline app today, and you can save up to 60% off hotels and up to 50% off flights. So don't just dream about that trip. Book it with Priceline.
Go to your happy price, Priceline.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. From streaming to shopping, Prime helps you get more out of your passions. So whether you're a fan of true crime or prefer a nail-biting novel from time to time, with services like Prime Video, Amazon Music, and fast free delivery, Prime makes it easy to get more out of whatever you're into or getting into. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to learn more.
McCrispy strips are now at McDonald's. I hope you're ready for the most dippable chicken in McDonald's history. Dip it in all the sauces. Dip it in that hot sauce in your bag. Dip it in your McFlurry. Your dip is your business. McCrispy strips at McDonald's.
Kick off summer with Memorial Day savings at Lowe's. Right now, get 5 Scott's Naturescapes 1.5 cubic foot mulch bags for just $10. Plus, get up to 40% off select major appliances and save an extra $50 on every $500 you spend on select major appliances $396 or more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 5/28. Mulch offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Chris DeMakes A Podcast, all you have to do is submit your song and bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's featured artist is a punk rock band from New York called Neck Scars. You can find them online at Facebook and Twitter, and you can find their music on Bandcamp. Here's a snippet of their song, Born Sick.
I took a bat and swung it at my neighbor's head. Doesn't it scare you to lose control? Even though it's the only way to feel. I heard you moved towards me.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
Well, that was super awesome. Lagwagon is easily one of the most respected bands in our world of music and among my group of friends. And a large part of that, which I think you touched on a little bit, is like the progressive nature of their music. They're basically a prog punk band.
Yeah, they're their own thing. They really are. And I'm so glad Joey didn't take my head off. It came out of my mouth, and I instantly thought, what did I just say? When I said, you got this prog, and it's got the punk elements. It's almost Iron Maiden it's almost metal. And then like there's these Karen Carpenter melodies, For anybody out there who knows who the Carpenters are, it's about as sappy love song, lovey-dovey 70s, contemporary rock you could get. But Joey totally embraced that. It was neat.
It was cool to hear him talk about everyone bringing their own element to songs that, I think for the most part, Joey is the main songwriter of Lagwagon, but it's all those influences of all his bandmates that he was talking about. And it made me laugh when he was talking about, the solo happens later in the song, and just thinking about when he went, sure, man, start soloing there for no reason. I thought that was funny because the song is so cool. Like, people obviously love this song, but like Joey said, the song became this way bigger and crazier thing when he brought it to his bandmates. And how cool is it? And I know you've had this experience. I have this experience all the time when you bring an idea to your bandmates and they all put their touches on it, and then it just becomes that more magical.
Yeah, I've constructed demos that in my head I'm like, what more could there be here? This is as great as it's going to get. And then the band puts their fingerprints on it and it becomes this other animal, and it's just so much better. Conversely, very few times I've done demos that I think were better than end up on the record. It could go the other way, but very few times. It's usually the sum of its parts, which I mentioned in the episode. And again, kudos to Joey for being humble enough to realize that, yeah, you know what, I can come up with the chord arrangement and the melodies and pretty much a concept for a song, but it's really when the other guys get in there that it becomes Lagwagon.
Hey, something I thought was cool that you guys talked about in this episode was not overusing harmonies. I remember when my band first learned how to use harmonies in songs, and it was harmonies on everything. That was our that was our trademark.
You're all of a sudden you were the Eagles.
Yeah, it was just, and I mean, I'm not going to say I don't like that necessarily, but there is a matter of being tasteful about it and using it effectively, because if you use it effectively, then it's going to have that much more of an impact when you do use it. This song is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, and I meant what I said to him. I took a page out of this song today. And I filed it away and said, you know what? I want to put a harmony on a word here or there and try to shake it up a little bit, because usually it's like, oh, this line needs a harmony, or this whole pre-chorus or this whole chorus needs to be harmonized. And that was really interesting how they came up with this. It was literally Joey singing on a bunch of stuff, and Ryan Green's ear was taking him to certain words and saying, you know what, that lends itself to a harmony. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, something else you guys talked about that I was laughing is talking about being, which I really have never been, I don't think that you have been, but being a standalone singer in a band. That's always been the dream, is to be the guy holding the mic and, running around and jumping. Like, that's awesome. But it is funny to think about, what do you do when you have a 1 or 2 minute section of a song where you don't sing? So you got to do something,
Well, when you're Axl Rose, you go behind the amps and have a wardrobe change and have a shot of whiskey. But in Joey's case, it's funny. When I brought that up, he had a little bit of a chuckle and a laugh with it. He says, yeah, and it's funny. I even mentioned it early on in the episode that I just, as a younger person, a younger musician, I just figured, oh, that guy's a singer. He can't play guitar. He can't play keyboards or drums. And how wrong could I have been with that?
It's funny, the negative light that I put on standalone singers for a bunch of years. I feel like I was real jaded about standalone singers. I'm like, you don't even play an instrument up there. You just sing, as if that isn't very, very hard to do. You're using your vocal cords as an instrument, and you're breathing, and it's very much an art in itself. Some could argue it might be the hardest instrument to play if you want to do it well. I mean, maybe it's not harder than a harp, but it's up there to be able to not only be a technically proficient singer, but to also have something about your voice that makes it stand out. That you can't even teach that, I don't think.
I've always maintained that the drummer has the hardest job. You're swinging all 4 limbs. Yeah. It's a real cardio workout. But it could be. I could also argue in the same breath about the singer, because I can relate to that as being a singer. There's just some nights where your throat doesn't want to work as well as it did last night when you were in Chicago, and man, you still got to deliver. Those people paid the same amount as the last night, and it's nerve-wracking.
Right. Joey was saying in his younger years that he would stage dive at that part sometimes, and I was thinking, have you stage dove?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I have, but it's been many years. I think the last time I did was on my birthday in Japan, probably over a decade ago now. I think we were in Nagoya, and I turned around and I threw my wallet out of my back pocket and like my wireless pack and maybe my tour laminate over to my stage manager at the end of the set. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And I just look at the crowd and I took off, and thank God they caught me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It could be a dangerous thing that I'm surprised still exists today. It's definitely a strange thing to feel a bunch of people's hands all over you and like jumping into a sea of sweaty people. The things that we do in the rock and roll lifestyle. But I've definitely done my share of stage dive. I've had friends, I don't think I've done this, but I've had friends that do stage flips, into the crowd. Like, yeah, people don't give a fuck.
Diving off speakers, diving off balconies. I've seen it all, but it's safe to say that stage dive in 2008 or 9 or whenever it was, that was probably my last one.
Right.
It was my birthday. The booze was flowing at the end of the set, and I remember waking up the next morning, and the first thing I thought of was like, thank God I didn't, throw my shoulder out or break my, collarbone or something.
Right. The other thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm not gonna disrespect Joey by even speculating with you, but you can't help but wonder who's this song about. And so we're not gonna get into that, but I more or less wanted to talk about, have you had this sort of experience, like a friend who's gone on to more success and then maybe become a different person, and you feel like you don't know him anymore?
A couple instances, yes. And much like Joey, I'm not going to divulge who that is.
Right.
It's not fair, because I realize as I've gotten older that maybe my perception of that person has changed as well.
Right.
And I also can be man enough now to say that I don't know what it's like to have 3 bodyguards and a private jet and have people pulling at you. You can't go to the store with your kids because you're getting mobbed. I don't know what that feels like. I don't know what that does to a person, but I have experienced that. I have experience where, this guy was a buddy of mine. I'm kind of getting rock started right now. Like, hey, it's Chris from Less Than Jake. Can I come in the dressing room? It's like the manager comes and like, nope, he's not talking to anybody. It's like, and I made eye contact with the guy. It's like, dude, we used to hang out and but again, I have to be able to be mature enough and know that there's another side to it, if that makes sense.
I've had that same exact experience that you're talking about, where it was someone I considered a friend and went to the show, and then it was security guards and stuff, and they're like escorting me back, and I'm like, what? And then that awkward situation where it's like, oh, things are different. And, I have a sort of, I don't know if you want to call it character flaw in myself that I already have anxiety about, is that I need to get over this a little bit, but I always feel like I'm bothering people. And 99% of the time, I'm sure that's not true, that if I called up somebody that I knew back in the day and said, hey, it's Chris, they'd probably be like, hey, man, what's up? Just like I would be with anyone. But I never want to bother people, if that makes sense.
I think you were raised right, and I think you were taught manners. I feel the same way. I've never wanted to be an imposition to somebody. I've had people, we talked about this before the show earlier, Chris and I were chatting, that I've had people want to cash in favors for them. Hey man, I'm doing this charity. Can you hit up this really popular band for me? I know you know them. And it's like, oh man, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I don't want to impose just because I know somebody or use my quote unquote star power to get something done. So I can completely relate to what you just said.
Yeah, it feels strange. And you guys touched on one more thing, which we have to mention, is the impact of Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, I guess, and 1. See, I didn't have that generation of PlayStation. I went from like Sega Genesis, then I didn't play games for a few years, played that game at some friends' houses and stuff, and then I think I got like a PlayStation 2 around the time that, remember Rock Band? You ever play Rock Band?
Oh, yeah.
Dude, Rock Band, so good. Although, the one thing, this is a little bit of a tangent, I think they did make this eventually, but how cool would it have been if Rock Band, it actually taught you how to play guitar instead of hitting matching color buttons? I always thought that was one flaw in Rock Band, but that aside, it was fun as hell. But my point being about Tony Hawk is, that really elevated this song to the next level, just like that series elevated that Goldfinger Superman song. That song.
The Tony Hawk, Pro Skater has, I said it has legs. To this day, fans come up and say that, man, the first time I heard you, we had that All My Best Friends Are Metalheads was in the first one or second one, and then later we had a song called That's Why They Call It a Union, and we were just on the latest game. I think it's maybe the 4th installment, or maybe it's more than that, with a song called Bomb Drop off a EP we put out a couple years ago. So we're luckily we're still getting invited to be on Tony Hawk, and maybe this will, I don't know, open up new doors to fans. That's ultimately what it did for Lagwagon.
That's the coolest thing ever, man. I've always had a dream that I wanted to get a Punchline song on either Madden or NHL. Like that was that was two things. Hey, what's funny is Chris number 2. I don't know if he told me this or I'm hearing this secondhand, but I talked to Chris number 2 from Anti-Flag before about having very specific goals for your band. Not like, hey, I want my band to be bigger, or, not vague goals, but specific. And I believe either he told me or someone else told me that a big goal of his was to have an Anti-Flag song on NHL because he loves hockey so much, plays hockey, loves the Penguins and everything like that. And then he got that. They were on there. And I for me, that's always been a big goal too. So, Ben, that's awesome that you guys are on the Tony Hawk games, man. That's so cool.
Heck yeah. And speaking of Tony Hawk, skate right on over to ChrisDeMakesADifference.com for this month's fundraiser for May, which is the Cure LGMD2I Foundation. Limb-girdle muscular dystrophy type 2I is a progressively debilitating disease, and their foundation provides funding for research programs to establish a treatment for this disease. So again, please head over to ChrisDeMakesADifference.com and give whatever you can. Your support and generosity is much appreciated.
Yeah, man, just do a kickflip right over to ChrisDeMakesADifference.com and make a donation. Like I've said the last couple weeks, this is a fundraiser that's near and dear to me. My good buddy, Tony Hartman, actually has LGMD2I, and he also has, I want to give it a shout out right now, he has a really cool podcast where he features people with challenges such as LGMD2I. The podcast is called Good Nature. You should check that out too. But go to ChrisDeMakesADifference.com. If you can pitch in $1, $2, $5, $10, whatever you can afford to pitch in. It all adds up and it all goes to a good cause.
That's right. And speaking of adding up, we're adding up some impressive after parties episodes right now for our VIP program, which is called Supporting Cast. And please head over to ChrisDeMakes.com and you can find out all the information for that. We're really excited about it.
I'm sure that one episode of Chris DeMakes A Podcast is not enough for anybody out there. So if you go over to ChrisDeMakes.com, join our VIP program, and you can get one episode every other week, or you can get an episode every week, depending on which level you pick. And also you'll get discounts on some upcoming Chris DeMakes A Podcast merch. And also we'll throw in some surprises here and there. And also, like I've said before, for the price of buying Chris and I a cup of coffee each month, you keep us making this podcast, bringing you great guests, and you'll keep us making this podcast forever. Hopefully we're a very important part of your week each week. I hope so anyway.
I hope so too. And the great thing about the supporting cast and the after party episodes is they don't have to follow or be about songwriting. They can literally be about anything. And so far we've talked about some great tour stories. When Less Than Jake toured with Bon Jovi, and it's the fans and the feedback has been really great. People seem to really like it, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, hell yeah, it is, man. And hey, Chris, before we go, I just want to tell you, Happy Lagwagon Day, man. If you're listening to this when the episode came out, it's Lagwagon Day. Happy Lagwagon Day to you, man.
Happy Lagwagon Day, and thanks to Joey Cape for sitting in with us. We'll see you next week.